Well, hello there and welcome to Community Forum, your weekly show of community interest, and sometimes even more than weekly. We seem to be doing an awful lot of shows lately for your enjoyment, and hopefully you'll have a chance to check them out on StoughtonTV.com to find out what shows are playing when. We like to make sure that you're well informed, and my name is Roy Cohen. I'm usually behind the screen with the buttons as the producer and director of the show, but today I just couldn't pass up the opportunity to interview the guest that we have on, Mary McGuire from the AAA. She's our annual guest to talk about things that are going on in and around the Boston area. When you hear the radio reports of gasoline going up, she's the one with the bad news, and when you hear the reports of gasoline going down, she's the one with the great news. And hopefully someday soon we'll hear more and more about the great news and how inexpensive it's going to be to go to the various places that we're going to talk about today. My suggestion is that if you have a chance, grab a pencil and paper and get ready to write down some of the fantastic things that Mary's going to be talking about, places to go, fun places to go with the kids. And we'll go from there. Mary, she's an award-winning journalist and director of public and legislative affairs at AAA Southern New England, and she lobbies for traffic safety bills on Beacon Hill, and she's a spokesperson for AAA in Massachusetts, as I mentioned before on the various radio stations. We're going to be talking about 25 or thereabouts favorite things to go see, and then a little later on we're going to break into a different subject, and we're going to be talking about distracted driving. And we have, in addition to Mary, we have Jerry Sibley, who will be on the show, and you've heard a lot about Jerry. Jerry has been an advocate of fighting distracted driving. I believe that's how you classify it. For many, many years. He's even been on the Oprah show and spoken before various legislative bodies, and we'll get into that in a little bit later on. But right now, let's talk about fun things to do. And Mary, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great to be here.
And we're ready to roll if you want to start off by talking about some of the things to do.
Absolutely. Well, you've teed it up perfectly for me, and thanks for having me on once again, because I always love being here. But you've teed it up perfectly when you talked about gasoline prices, because actually we're a little bit lower this week. We've actually dropped below the $3.50 average in Massachusetts, and I've seen prices drop since we do our Monday survey. So that means it will be a little bit less expensive for you to do some of these great day trips that we're going to talk about.
Excellent. It's good news.
So that's the piece of good news that I have for you. And actually, we do travel forecasts for Memorial Day and 4th of July, and we've actually found that about 90% of all of those who are traveling, even for these major holidays, when you have a little bit longer to travel, are going to go by car. Mm-hmm. So even though gasoline prices are on average a little bit higher than they were at this time last year, most people are taking to the roads in their cars, so that's great news. So let's talk about some great places to go. First of all, I would direct everybody to AAA.com/drivevacations because of the fact that you can find all of this information and much more on our website. Good. So you don't necessarily have to worry about the pen and paper, but that works well too. So AAA.com/drivevacations. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is amusement parks, and I think we have, as I said, some pictures of the places where we love to direct people. And I have to talk about Six Flags because of the fact that not only is it a terrific amusement park, but we have a fantastic AAA discount of more than $20 off the gate price. And when you come into the branch to pick up your tickets, you can also get some terrific coupons for drinks and snacks. And my son just went to Six Flags with friends. They all took advantage of the AAA discount, and they all had a terrific time. And if you love big roller coasters, Six Flags is really the place to go. If you're looking for some place that has more of a down-home, old-fashioned feel, I absolutely love Canobie Lake Park. I've probably been there a dozen times and took my kids there when they were growing up because my husband's from New Hampshire, and it's kind of got an old-fashioned, old-world feel, and it's got the old-fashioned lemonade, and it's just a fantastic place. It also has some great coasters. They just added a terrific water park at Kenneby Lake a couple of years ago, which I love, and there's also a wonderful boat ride on Kenneby Lake that's terrific. And I think one of the things that I love about Kenneby Lake Park is that it really offers something for people of all ages. So I think that's one of the big pluses. If you're in Connecticut, Lake Compounce is a wonderful destination along with Quasi Amusement Park, and of course Water Country in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. If you love water rides, and I do, you probably do too, Roy, it's a great destination.
I wear my raincoat.
That's right.
Which park is it that I've been hearing they just built a new roller coaster that's supposed to be scary as heck?
Yeah, I think that's Kenneby Lake Park where they've added a great new coaster. So
You haven't been on it,
I
have
haven't
you?
been on the new coaster yet. I have been in the water park, but I haven't been on the new coaster, and it's supposed to be a great thrill ride. So again, if you're looking for great coasters, I would have to say that Kenneby Lake and Six Flags in particular, for larger coasters, are both great destinations. So not everybody loves amusement parks and water parks as we do, Roy. So there are a lot of terrific museums and museum experiences in the New England states. And one of the best is the Harrisoff Museum, which is in Rhode Island. And I have to say, I actually know Halsey Harrisoff. I used to interview him when I was a television reporter. And a lot of people don't know that Rhode Island has this absolutely fantastic historic tradition of sailing. Of course, we hosted the America's Cup in Newport last year, and I went. It was a terrific event. But if you want to learn more about the rich history of the America's Cup and of yachting and yacht racing and sailing in Rhode Island, in the New England states, you really owe it to yourself to take a visit to the Harrisoff Museum because it really is a fantastic destination. And it's in Bristol, which of course is also the home of the Bristol 4th of July Parade, which is one of the oldest and largest in the nation. And that's also a terrific event to go to. If you've never been to the Bristol 4th of July Parade, which is coming right up, you owe it to yourself to go. Just get in early so you can find a place to park.
Crowds. You have to love crowds.
You do, but it is. I've actually been in the parade. I've been on a float. AAA for the past few years has done a float, been on a float in the Bristol 4th of July Parade, and it's just a terrific experience.
When you mentioned that yachting museum, there's I seem to recall from many, many years ago when I was on the road selling, going to, I don't remember the company, but going to a manufacturing plant, watching them build the sailboats.
Absolutely.
Do you know anything about those?
Well, you know what, there are a lot of really well-known, famous yacht makers in Rhode Island. So there's Tillotson Pearson.
That was the one,
Hood,
was Pearson.
Yeah, so they're Pearson Yachts. So there is not only a rich tradition of yachting and sailing in Newport and in Rhode Island, but also a rich tradition of boat building and yacht building and sails and all of those things that go into the manufacture of boats and boating. So there's so much to learn about that history. And again, the America's Cup has been such a fantastic part of the history of yachting and sailing in Rhode Island. And I have a lot of friends who sail, and they do it not only all summer, but they do it in the winter too. So they're sailing and frostbiting, they call it, all year round. So anyway, if you're in the Newport area to enjoy the sailing history or the Harrisoff Museum, you also can take a trip to Ocean Drive in Newport. And Ocean Drive is one of the beautiful, most gorgeous drives in the country, certainly. And one of the great things is that you're close to the water. You're right on the ocean, thus the name Ocean Drive. There's a lot of parking. You see a lot of people flying kites and having picnics, but you can actually park easily and head right down to the rocks and spend some time. You see people reading. Again, you see people flying kites. It's a terrific drive. And you can also head down to Bellevue Avenue and take in the mansions. And the Newport Preservation Society is just a fabulous organization that operates many of the mansions, and you can do a package tour. I should say that there are many discounts available, again, on our AAA.com website that you can access in order to get discounts for a number of these attractions, so don't forget to do that. Another often overlooked but fantastic venue in Newport is the Newport Tennis Hall of Fame. I've actually been there and seen a number of matches there, and first of all, it's an historic building in and of itself. So the building itself is a gem, and there are a couple of great restaurants right next door, La Forge Casino, and a number of terrific places to eat nearby. There's shopping nearby. There's a wonderful art gallery nearby, and you can stop in. I know they have a terrific series, I think, planned for next week that I've seen a lot of tennis stars coming in. So that's another great place to take advantage of, and it's very close to the mansions, within walking distance of some of the mansions.
Isn't there, there's some other sites to see, I think along the Ocean Drive, some of the homes of some of the formerly very famous people like the Auchincloss. You can see their home.
That's right. Hammersmith Farm is Jackie Kennedy's childhood summer home, and you can take a tour of Hammersmith, and it is just a beautiful spot. And one of the things that I love most about Hammersmith Farm, and of course it was the summer White House for President Kennedy as well, is the fact that unlike the mansions, which are beautiful and impressive and amazing, the mansions, many of them have more of a museum feel, because they are indeed museums. But Hammersmith Farm has the feel of a country home, a very opulent and beautiful and spectacular country home, but nevertheless it's got more of a homey feel. So there are a lot of wonderful photographs of President Kennedy when he spent time there, of Jackie Kennedy, Onassis growing up, et cetera. So yeah, that's absolutely, I'm glad you mentioned it.
Right. And those mansions, whenever we go by there, it's just, it's incredible how much money there was back at the beginning of the last century, where they were able to build those mansions. I mean, I just don't know where they all got their money.
Well, and you know what? The mansions are really fascinating, because when you go through the mansions, there's just so much history of, those families, the Vanderbilts, et cetera, these families who made, tremendous money in railroads, et cetera. They made their fortunes, and then they became the summer cottages, as they're often called, which of course is funny, because these are not cottages.
No, they're not.
And one of the great things too is that if you haven't done a mansion tour, not only do you learn so much about the history through the tour guides and the videos and the materials they used, the gold leaf that's used, the marble that it was imported from Italy, and all of these incredible materials. But often you're able to walk out on the terraces of these mansions, and you have this tremendous ocean view. So on a beautiful day, it's a great place to go. And I'd also recommend to people the Cliff Walk.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
Which is a walk that goes along the cliff, along the ocean in Newport. It's a wonderful walk, and you can see many of the mansions from the Cliff Walk. Actually, there was some damage to the Cliff Walk during Superstorm Sandy.
Really?
Yeah, but there's a construction project underway to repair some of the damage to the Cliff Walk. So it's a fantastic walk. I just did it last year. In fact, last April I was on the Cliff Walk, and I go there as often as I possibly can. So Newport is just full of great restaurants, great attractions. There's a yachting center down on the waterfront in Newport as well. If you feel that you haven't had enough yachting at the Herreshoff Museum, you can go and visit the yachting center in Newport. But there's just so much history in Newport, in addition to the mansions and the Tennis Hall of Fame, and it's just a wonderful place to visit. And people, I think, are sometimes scared off because they worry about traffic and parking. Now, first of all, if you go during the week, if you're able to take a day trip during the week, you're going to have a little bit less of an issue with parking, with traffic. But you know what? I always find that there's plenty of parking, and there are several, not only are there metered spaces downtown, but there are many lots on the waterfront in Bannister's Wharf and Bowen's Wharf, and there are also some lots in the historic area a little bit across the street, across America's Cup Avenue and across Ocean Drive. You can find lots that are in the residential areas as well, and there's some street parking in the residential areas too.
Is there a charge to visit the mansions? Do they charge you for that?
There is, and you can visit the mansions separately, or you can get a package deal, which I think includes 4 mansions, and again, there are discounts available as well. So make sure that you visit AAA.com so you can find out about those.
Absolutely, and the Cliff Walk is free.
And the Cliff Walk is free to all, and there's, again, to go into Bannister's Wharf and Bowen's Wharf, the beautiful wharf areas downtown, and you can see yachts as they come in. Sometimes you've got the tall ships, you've got schooners. There's a lot to see just walking along the waterfront in Newport. Terrific shops, terrific dining, as well as wonderful views of the harbor.
Excellent.
So I also want to talk about Gillette Castle in Connecticut, which is just a fun place to go, and I haven't been there in quite a few years, but the area of East Haddam is just a beautiful area in and of itself. Not only the castle, but The area around there includes a lot of beautiful river areas, river cruises, a lot of wonderful restaurants. This is just a wonderful part of Connecticut. There are beaches close by, and so you don't want to overlook this part of Connecticut because it really offers a lot of wonderful opportunities for visiting and touring. Back to Rhode Island for a minute, Block Island.
Oh.
We hear a lot about Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard, and both of which are fantastic places, but many people haven't been to Block Island, and Block Island is just off the coast of Rhode Island. It's a quick ferry ride from a number of different locations, and Block Island, like Canobie Lake Park, has that old world feel to it in many ways. You get off the ferry, there's a little restaurant right there. There's some beautiful old historic hotels on Block Island that you see as you get off the ferry. It's a small island, easy to get around. A lot of people love to ride bikes, rent and ride bikes on Block Island, and you can ride up to the bluffs. And it's a little bit of a tough ride at the end. I've done it. You've got a big hill that you've got to get up to the bluffs, obviously, so there's a hill involved. But the view from the bluffs is spectacular, and there's a lighthouse up there that is just one of the great historic lighthouses of New England, and there's some wonderful ice cream places, some terrific restaurants. So Block Island is a place where a lot of my friends love to vacation because it tends to be a little bit quieter, a little bit more off the beaten path than Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard.
What kind of views do you get from Block Island? Can you see Point Judith?
Yeah, and you just have beautiful ocean views, and on a clear, beautiful day, it's just, there's a lot to see. So it's just someplace that I really recommend, and it's a really special place.
Yeah.
So if you're going to Block Island, you may be leaving from Point Judith or Narragansett, and we also want to talk about Narragansett, which is just a wonderful spot, and you see there the towers at Narragansett,
right.
And the beach area is just wonderful, and of course there are a number of beaches. There's Narragansett Beach, but also Scarborough Beach, and
down the road.
Yeah,
Narragansett Pier. I remember going there as a kid. I'm originally from Rhode Island, and I loved going to the pier.
And a lot of people love the pier, and you did that as a kid. You did that growing up.
Sat on the wall and watched the chicks walk by.
And a lot of people still do that. They still love to sit on the wall. And when some of the big storms have come in, we always advise people to stay, a safe distance from the ocean. But people love to go down there, and you also see a lot of surfers.
Yep.
Down there. It's a really popular spot. And again, you've got some wonderful restaurants, some really fun shopping in the area, and you've got Ocean Road, which has some absolutely spectacular homes on it. And it's just a beautiful drive to come up. One terrific drive, by the way, and I've done it on a bike, is to start in Mystic, Connecticut, and you can come up through Mesquamacut Beach and Westerly on the bike, and you can ride along the coast, and you can do it in your car as well. And then you come up into Ocean Road in Narragansett, and it's just a really beautiful drive if you're looking for a nice drive to do during the day.
The ride from Point Judith down that Ocean Road to Narragansett is just set up with some beautiful homes. If you look depending which way you're going, but look to the ocean side, the homes that are in there, again, a situation is where did all that money come from?
Yeah, and it's, that is such a great point, Roy, because that is really an area worth seeing. And to go down into Point Judith, and I got to tell you, if you love to buy fresh fish, there are some wonderful fish markets down in that area, Point Judith and Narragansett. So I think that's, if you're going to do that drive from Mystic up, along the coast into Ocean Road and into Narragansett, and then north back to Providence, you definitely want to stop and buy some fresh fish or shrimp.
I can go one better recommendation than that if you'd like. We normally try to go down there once a year in the off season. It's about a 70-mile trip, and we go down to Point Judith, and we go to Aunt Carrie's.
I was just going to say Aunt Carrie's has got to be
Champlin's,
one of the.
Those are places, and we get clam cakes. Now, what are clam cakes? Nothing you can get around here, but they're great. They're like little fritters, and if you're lucky, you'll find some pieces of clam in there. But the other thing that's great about it is when you're in, I believe it was Aunt Carrie's, and you go up to the upper level, you sit there, and the boats are coming in and out of there. There's a small inlet that the Block Island boat leaves from, and just across the inlet is Jerusalem.
That's right, Jerusalem.
And Jerusalem, although it's right across the water, is about a half hour, 45 minutes to get to the other side by car. But it's so relaxing. It's so beautiful.
It really is. And you know what? Uncarries, you're absolutely right. I'm glad you brought it up, is a favorite. I mean, everybody talks about Uncarries and Chaplains.
Right.
And, just great, time-tested favorites for people to go and have seafood. And when people have guests visiting from out of town or out of state, they'll always take them to Uncarries. So I think that's a great recommendation. And you're right, sitting up top on the deck and watching the ferries, come and go is a great way to while away a summer afternoon.
You can even drop a line in and do a little fishing right there in the rocks.
Maybe that's where they get their fresh fish. That's
Probably,
why it's so fresh.
probably.
That's what they do. So it's a great spot. It really is. Also want to talk about some of the living history museums. We talked about some great things to do outdoors, but you can go inside and also spend some time outside at places like Old Sturbridge Village and Plymouth Plantation. And it's funny, my daughter's 19 years old. She just asked me the other day, she said, can we go back to Plymouth Plantation again sometimes? I used to take my kids the Wednesday before Thanksgiving every year when they were growing up to Plymouth Plantation. And it really is a tremendous amount of fun. And people think of Plymouth Plantation as being a destination at Thanksgiving time, at holiday time, but it's also a great summer destination, and there are actually some beautiful beaches nearby too. So you can combine a trip to Plymouth Plantation with a trip to the beach, and then also an excursion into Plymouth proper, where you can see, of course, Plymouth Rock.
That little thing.
That little thing. I know. I was surprised the first time I saw it. I envisioned this giant rock, but it actually is somewhat smaller than I think people envision in their minds. But there's a lot to see downtown. There are also some great fish restaurants, seafood restaurants downtown, and there's a lot of history, and that's a great walk. And there's also a great cupcake place in Plymouth, and cupcakes are in right now. Yeah, I think it's Cupcake Charlie's or Charlie Cupcakes, but it's a great place to visit in Plymouth. So certainly we recommend that. I think Plymouth is a terrific summer destination because of the proximity of beaches. And one of the nice things about the idea of living history is that, for example, when you go to Plymouth Plantation and you try to take the pictures of those folks who are actual inhabitants, if you will, of Plymouth during that time, you'll try to take their picture and they'll say, what is that? Is that a lens? So they really play the role. They live the role. That's the term living history. They are very much in that moment, in that time of the settlement of Plymouth and of the Plymouth Plantation. So it's really fascinating. You can learn so much from the folks who are staffing Plymouth Plantation and are really living out that role, whether they're making cornmeal or working to build a house or to thatch a roof. They're doing a lot of interesting things. There's a lot that you can watch and learn from. And in that same vein is Old Sturbridge Village, which of course is just a terrific destination. There's so much to do in central Massachusetts. Worcester, a lot of terrific museums in Worcester, and of course Sturbridge Village being one of them, a living history museum where you can see how things were done during that time. And if you have, I think, young children, or if you're of any age, you can learn so much from a visit to Old Sturbridge Village. So certainly recommend it. Back outside again, one of the things that I think is often overlooked, we talk about Martha's Vineyard, we talk about Nantucket, we've talked about Block Island this morning, but if you live in Boston or close by, the Boston Harbor Islands are a great destination, and you can access them from a number of different ferry spots, and they're all different, but some of them have restrooms, snack bars. You can go out for a day at the beach. Just a lot of. One of them has a fort. I mean, there are a whole bunch of different fun things you can do on the Harbor Islands, and you can take a ferry to George's Island. You can explore Fort Warren. That's the fort I mentioned, and again, just so many things to do on a beautiful day. If it stops raining and the sun comes out for long enough, right?
We hope that'll happen. Yeah.
10 inches of rain in June. So. And then finally, one thing I'd like to encourage people to do too. We all talk about the Cape, and love to spend time out there in the summer. And Provincetown is really one of those great destinations that's really worth taking the ride out to. One of the things that we've enjoyed doing the most over the years is there are a number of wonderful whale watches off Provincetown, in addition to some fabulous beaches like Race Point, and the views from Provincetown are wonderful. And again, the shopping downtown, a lot of funky, fun, different little shops and stores which make it a really fun destination, and just something that I think is worthwhile in terms of, you know, heading out to the tip of Cape Cod. And, you know, on the way back, you can stop and explore all the other wonderful places, Wellfleet, Truro, Chatham, Dennis, Yarmouth. I mean, they all have their own personalities and their own character. So, and you're a fan of the Cape, aren't you?
Yeah, of course. I love getting caught in traffic. I love crowds.
Well, and to your point, that's another good spot like Newport to try to head during the week for a day trip if you're able to do that. Not all of us are as fortunate to be able to do that. You know, we're working Monday through Friday, but if you have a day free or you're taking a vacation day during the week, those are good spots. And finally, one terrific thing to do in Rhode Island, in Providence, if you haven't done it already, is Waterfire. And I could talk about Waterfire for the rest of the show, so you'll have to stop me. But Waterfire is the creation of Barnaby Evans, who just envisioned this tremendous experience for downtown Providence, and has really brought so much life and liveliness back to downtown Providence. And you see sort of an aerial view of Waterfire. And basically, there are 3 rivers that converge in downtown Providence, and the rivers were actually relocated during the Mayor Cianci tenure administration a number of years ago. And when those rivers were relocated, much of downtown was sort of reconfigured to create more of a river walk feel in downtown Providence, and that's what we have in downtown Providence now, and it's really been wonderful. So what you see is these piers have been erected on the rivers, and they're then filled with wood. There are Waterfire boats that circulate through the rivers, fill them with wood. The piers are lit, and it creates this beautiful atmosphere where all these boats are circulating on the rivers. You've got the fires, and the restaurants all converge downtown, and they're selling food, and there's wonderful music. Usually every Waterfire has a theme, and the music is a big part of that. So you've got food, you've got people, you've got fire, and you've got just this beautiful atmosphere with the music downtown, and it's really infused so much life into downtown Providence. And there's a tremendous documentary that was actually done by a friend of mine, Joe Rocco, recently, and Jim Karpachik was the photographer, another friend of mine. And the Waterfire documentary really tells the story, and it's really worth seeing.
How often do they put on the show?
It's usually at least every other week in the summer, sometimes a little bit more often.
Is it a weekend thing, or?
It's usually done on a Saturday night, but there are some Friday night Waterfires, and there's some special holiday Waterfires. But if you go to their website, you'll be able to get the full schedule.
And that's free.
That's all free.
Unless, don't they have do they have boats that you can go on also?
There are boats that you can go on, and they're all different types of boats. They're actually people who volunteer to help set up the wood piles and feed the fires, and you can also go on a gondola ride, which is terrific, and there are restaurants that are located close by, and again, you have all of the tents set up. There are corporate sponsors with tents, and you, again, can go and you can buy food at any number of various Providence area restaurants. And I have to say, Providence in the last 10 or 20 years has really become well known for its wonderful restaurants. And in many cases, they're more affordable than the restaurants perhaps in Boston or New York, which are also wonderful. But there are just so many terrific restaurants downtown within walking distance of Waterfire. So
what about just outside of downtown, like Atwells Avenue?
Oh, Federal Hill, absolutely. If you're looking for a great Italian experience, Federal Hill is really Providence's or Rhode Island's Little Italy, if you will, and there are dozens of wonderful Italian restaurants. And
They've been there for a long time. They're crowded all the time, but it's probably a lot more convenient to go there than it is to go to the North End in Boston.
And the North End is wonderful too. Again, I mean, I love Boston, I love Providence, I love Hartford. I mean, Portland. I mean, there's so many great cities in New England, but there's no doubt that you can walk Federal Hill. And one of the great things about Federal Hill is not just the restaurants that have been there a long time, like the Old Canteen or the Blue Grotto, but also the fact that there are so many wonderful bakeries there and shops where you can get the fresh cheeses and meats and the prosciutto and the olives, and I love all of that too. That's one of the fun things about being on Federal Hill. So I think we've given you a good idea of plenty of places to go.
And most of the places you're talking about are probably at no charge.
A lot of the places are free, and you know what? I have to encourage you.
The sightseeing portion of it. I'm
Yep,
talking
to
about.
sightsee. And, you know, I have to encourage people, again, to visit AAA.com/drivevacations because, you know, there are many places like Stowe, Vermont or Boothbay Harbor. We have a whole drive vacation series. There's some locations in Arlington, Virginia, Washington, D.C. I realize we're talking about out of New England now, but in the summer, people are driving further. They're vacationing all over New England and all over the region, all over the East Coast and beyond. And we offer some really terrific deals on drive vacations. And again, they include every place from Niagara Falls to New England attractions like Boothbay Harbor, like Bar Harbor in Maine, Newport. All of them are listed on the website, and there are some really good deals. I mean, for example, the Boothbay Harbor excursion, you spend 2 nights in Boothbay. I think it also includes a dinner and a trip to the Botanical Gardens and a boat ride. And we're talking, you know, I don't want to quote prices because you can find them on the website, but we're talking a very reasonable price that you can do all of this for. So there's some wonderful packages. I actually did the Bar Harbor AAA Drive Vacation in Maine last summer, and that's at the Blue Nose Inn, which is just a wonderful venue on a hill with a tremendous view of Mount Desert Island and that whole area. Frenchman's Bay, just a wonderful spot. They have an indoor and an outdoor pool. They've got a spa. They've got a wonderful restaurant where you can have breakfast. The accommodations were lovely. It was within walking and biking distance of downtown Bar Harbor, close to Acadia, which is another spot that we really should mention because Acadia in Maine is a national park. And you know what, I got to tell you, that picture is pretty spectacular because it looks that beautiful and more. And Acadia is a wonderful place to hike, to walk along the shore. You see the shore here. It's also got a tremendous network of biking trails, of cycling trails that are known as the carriage trails. And it was, I believe, set up by the Rockefeller family many years ago. They established this whole system of carriage trails in Acadia. And we did a bike ride of about 25, 30 miles when we were there last summer. And it was just so enjoyable. And you get these vistas from on high that are just wonderful. And there's also a terrific place I would recommend in Acadia National Park called the Jordan Pond House. And the Jordan Pond House is known for its popovers.
Oh.
So not only do they have a wonderful lunch, but they have these wonderful popovers that they're famous for that they serve with homemade jam. And you can ride right into the Jordan Pond House on your bike. You can bring your car, obviously, as well. Or you can hike in, and people stop and they have lunch. They enjoy the popovers, and there's also a beautiful flower garden there. So if you love flowers and you love gardening, it's just a beautiful place to walk around and just a wonderful atmosphere. I also love downtown Bar Harbor. I mean, not only is Acadia a wonderful place, but you've also got all of these wonderful little shops and restaurants in downtown Bar Harbor, and you've got this amazing harbor there to walk around with beautiful hotels and, again, beautiful homes to look at. And it's just such a wonderful area to explore. So I really recommend Bar Harbor to everybody. We had a wonderful experience there. But Boothbay is also wonderful. You've got the Lobster Festival in Rockland in Maine. And you've got Portland, which is just such a vibrant city. Portland, the waterfront, they've done, I think, the most spectacular job really restoring that waterfront area. Again, a lot of seafood restaurants. I'm from Maryland, so I'm partial to seafood. So if you don't like seafood, there's still plenty of other stuff to eat in all of these places that we've talked about. Lots of steaks and Italian food, and you know, again on Federal Hill in Providence. So.
I like my clam cakes.
I like the clam cakes too, and the chowder. You got to have the chowder with the clam cakes. The chowder,
absolutely.
That's right.
Yeah, you're mentioning all these trips that can be done in the summertime. I look at the Arcadia photo that we just had up on the screen, and I'm wondering what that place looks like come October.
You know what? I think actually that Acadia is a really popular spot in October because the trees.
The foliage.
Yeah, the foliage is gorgeous.
I love foliage.
Yeah, I do too.
Even around here.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's so many great places to see. My son actually lives out in Pomfret, Connecticut, and when we drive out to see him from Massachusetts, where we live near Foxborough, you drive through the Scituate Reservoir, and the foliage on the Scituate Reservoir in the fall is just, and then you go through all the apple orchards. And by the way, that area of northeastern Connecticut where he lives, Pomfret, Putnam, Connecticut. That is a hidden jewel. That's another great area that just offers a lot of fun places to see. There's a number of state parks and beautiful waterfalls, and that is a beautiful corner of Connecticut.
As a kid, I remember going to camp right next to the Situate Reservoir.
Oh, really? Where'd you go?
Camp Centraland. It was a day camp.
Really?
Yeah, my parents shipped me out. Go to camp. But I also recall that the Situate Reservoir is the main water supply for the city of Providence.
That's right.
Yeah.
But it's
beautiful.
It's beautiful to drive through even now. I just love that drive out to sort of Danielson, that whole area, and then you drive into Connecticut, and it's just a beautiful area.
For those of you who are stuck here in Massachusetts, I really have to recommend that you take advantage of a lot of these trips that Mary so energetically described to you, because we really live in a beautiful area. And it's so out of the ordinary from what we go through every day, fighting our way in and down the expressway and all that kind of stuff. Go out west. Go out and check out these spots that she's talking about.
You know what? I have to just say one more thing about that, and that is that we always have very good travel numbers in New England, and reporters will ask me, why do we see more of an increase here in New England than we do in, let's say, Wyoming or something like that? And I think we are incredibly lucky here in New England because we have so many different ports of call, if you will, that are in such close proximity.
Right.
So in one day you can drive easily across the state of Rhode Island. You can go to Newport and then you can go up to northern Rhode Island to the apple orchards, or you can drive across Massachusetts to the Berkshires and then head to the Cape on the other end. Or you can head up to Maine. You can be in southern New Hampshire, or you can be in the White or Green Mountains, in just a matter of, a couple of hours.
That annual trip that I'm talking about, when we go down to Point Judith, we'll go down to Point Judith in the morning and have lunch down there, and then we come back and go over the Newport Bridge.
Exactly.
And then we go down the Ocean Drive that you're talking about, just full of beautiful sights to see.
Exactly. And so, you could really hit all 5 New England states if you wanted to over the course of a week-long, vacation.
Absolutely.
And you can do it at a reasonable price because, again, gasoline prices are dropping a little bit right now. And you can do it easily without having to drive for miles and miles and miles. So you can really hit so many different varied locations. And I think we're very lucky in terms of that in New England, with how close we are to so many great things, so many great attractions.
Have we gone through the whole list that you
I think we've gone through the whole list.
You've done a beautiful job with it, and just looking at you, you just love what you're doing, and it shows.
I love to travel.
Let me ask you one quick question before we switch hats here.
Sure.
You talk about gas prices. Do you see gas prices dropping?
Well, it's a great question. Substantially, I don't know. I think we're in a period of moderation right now. We dropped a couple of cents. This week we sort of been going up a penny, down a penny, and so I think that's why I say we're moderating right now. But typically, historically, Roy, we see the price of gasoline tending to peak on or about 4th of July and then drop. And I think we probably have already peaked, I hope, at this point. And we're going to see moderate prices continue. Certainly, I don't expect to see a big run-up as we head into the 4th of July weekend, and it's right around the corner. So I think, the fact that prices fell slightly in Massachusetts this week, according to our AAA survey, bodes well for the 4th of July.
Yeah.
So even if we were to see a slight run-up as demand increases and more people hit the road for the July 4th holiday, I think we'll tend to see prices fall quickly after that, because many people, as you know, take their vacations on or about the 4th. Demand is high. We have a lot of people on the road. And in addition to that, we see a lot of factories that might be shutting down during or around the 4th of July, and so people tend to take their vacations then. So I think we'll tend to see prices moderate, even if we see a little bit of an uptick on or about
I think
after the 4th.
that more recently we heard information about the cartel getting a little nervous because we're coming up with new and better ways to produce the oil products here in the United States.
That's right.
And maybe they're starting to think that maybe they should lower the prices of the barrel of oil.
Yeah, I mean, certainly we're moving to being more energy efficient. That's the direction that we're going in. We're finding, obviously greater resources here in the U.S., and that is making a difference. Back in 2008, when we had historically high gasoline prices, when we actually exceeded the $4 mark and broke history in doing so in Massachusetts and nationally, We were looking at the price of a barrel of oil at its height at about $147 a barrel. And
Ridiculous.
today, the price of oil is more in the mid-90 range. So just to sort of put that in perspective, we flirted with $4 a gallon for gasoline since that 2008, that summer of 2008, when we all really suffered, and I'm sure you remember that. I certainly do. But we haven't exceeded that $4 mark since then. So hopefully, since we just dipped below $3.50 on average in Massachusetts, and the national average is also falling, hopefully we will stay below that $3.50. I think that's, prices are still high, there's no doubt about that, but it's a more comfortable spot for consumers to be in than when we had between $3.50 and $4, as you know.
It should only happen. Well, in planning for the show, when I got in touch with Mary, we talked about the 25 pleasant places or happy places to go, fun places to go. She also sent me back a note saying, I have to talk about distracted driving. And when she mentioned that, I says, well, I know somebody who has been a fighter for doing things about distracted driving, and I gave him a call and I says, Jerry, where are you? And he says, I'm in Florida. And this is Jerry Sibley, a personal friend of mine for years. And Jerry, come on back up here. We need to do a show with you and Mary. He says, maybe we'll do it with Skype. So with no further ado, I would like to introduce Jerry Sibley. If we can push the button and get him on. Are you there?
I'm here, Roy. Can you hear me?
Oh, we can hear you and see you both. Welcome
Hi,
to the
Mary.
show, Jerry, and we'll let Mary kick off the discussion about the distracted driving, and then we'll get you to talk a little bit about the history of your battle.
Hi, Jerry. Always great to be with you. Happy summer.
Great to see you, Mary.
So, when we talk about the 25 most fun places to go, and I think we actually probably approached 30, one of the things we talked about was the fact that 90% of us go by car when we're getting to these places, and many of us are traveling over the summer. Many of us will travel over the 4th. So I think the message that both Jerry and I would like to send, and Jerry will tell his story in a moment of why this is such a personal passion for him, but of course I work in traffic safety at AAA, and we want to send an important message to people, which is you don't want to drive distracted, drowsy, or drunk. And these are all issues around the 4th of July holiday and all summer. And AAA National, our AAA Foundation for Traffic Safety, in conjunction with the University of Utah, just released a groundbreaking study on distracted driving, and it's called the Strayer Report. And David Strayer is a professor, researcher, PhD at the University of Utah, and he conducted a study, a groundbreaking study, the most thorough study of its kind to date, which reveals levels of distraction when driving that are equivalent to the categories of a hurricane. So if you're driving and you're listening to the radio or a book on tape, that's a Category 1 hurricane equivalent distraction. If you're talking either hands-free or handheld, that's the equivalent of a Category 2 hurricane level of distraction. And if you're interacting with your in-vehicle technology, and I'm talking about GPS, I'm talking about voice activation to call someone on the phone, make a restaurant reservation, all of these things that new cars are able to do as this in-car technology evolves, that's the equivalent of a level 3 hurricane distraction. So I think the main point that comes out of this research and the main message we'd like to send to people is that hands-free is not risk-free. And Jerry has been a longtime advocate for hands-free cell phone use in Massachusetts, and I know he'll talk about that. But the message we also want to send at AAA is that you should absolutely have your hands on the wheel when driving for many reasons, because you can maneuver better and because other drivers like to see that you're paying attention, not talking on the phone, not distracted by your conversation. But I think we've all had the experience, Roy and Jerry, of driving by our exit because we were either talking to a passenger or we were talking hands-free on our cell phone or we were talking on our handheld phone. And we get so involved in the conversation that our mind is not on our driving. Our mind is on our conversation. And that's really the main message of the Strayer Report, that don't think just because you're hands-free that you're risk-free, because you're not. Because if you're not focusing on your driving where your mind belongs, you are focusing on your conversation instead, you're going to be distracted. So people need to remember that. You're much safer when you're talking to your passenger because your passenger has a set of eyes and ears, and that passenger can see if you need to put your brake on. And your wife probably says to you, Roy, put your brake on. Roy, there's a pedestrian. Roy, am I right?
I say to her, stop being a backseat driver.
Exactly, but a backseat driver makes you a safer driver in
Correct.
many ways because
Correct.
it's another set of eyes and ears. Whereas when you're talking remotely on your cell phone, even if you're hands-free, you're focusing on that conversation. So you want to obey the law in Massachusetts, no texting, it's illegal. You can talk on your handheld cell phone, but you need to try to pull over if you're going to talk on your handheld cell phone, and you need to try to limit your conversation. You know, a quick, okay, I'll see you later, I'll be there at 2 o'clock, that works. Not a long, involved conversation where you're focusing on the conversation, not on your driving.
I can just picture going down the Southeast Expressway and watching everybody pull over so they can use their phone.
Well, and you know what, I have to say this, and I want to give Jerry his time to talk about, you know, his story and tell his story, but I drive about 37,000 miles a year, and I'm horrified at the number of people I see on the expressway and on busy roads in and around Boston every day who are, I see more reading than texting. I see people accelerating and they've got a phone in full view in front of their face and they are reading their cell phone. You know what? Your first responsibility when you're in the car is to yourself, the safety of your passengers, and the safety of other motorists.
Right.
You endanger others when you text or when you read a text while you're driving. It's illegal. You can be stopped, cited, and fined for it. And furthermore, most importantly, you endanger yourself, your passengers, and other motorists. You have a responsibility. Driving is a privilege, not a right.
Absolutely.
Okay, so Jerry,
Jerry,
take it
we
away.
got about 10 minutes for you to tell your story.
I'm going to go now, Roy.
Yeah, I figured you would.
So beautifully. Thank you.
Jerry's
so much.
coming to us from Naples, Florida.
And
and
it's a beautiful day here in Naples. And I'm so thrilled, Roy, that we started at 11:30 right on time.
Yeah.
It's
Sorry,
now
Jerry.
1:20, and I'm still here. He made me put on a suit coat. And is there too much glare, Roy?
Yeah, there's a lot of glare, Jerry. I wish you'd
I
do
know.
something about that for the next time.
I'm working towards that for the next time. But I
Change
rearranged the
your lights.
furniture. I'm going to do that.
Right.
So as Mary said, I've been a distracted driving advocate for, it's going on almost 7 years now since my son Jordan was killed. Roy, I don't know if Mary shared with you the irony of our relationship, Mary being the spokesperson for AAA and being so involved in driver safety. And I didn't know for almost 2 years, maybe almost 3 years, that where Jordan was killed in Norton, the tree was in front of Mary's house.
Oh, no, I didn't know that.
And we met at a distracted driving conference in Cape Cod, and she came over to me and introduced herself. I had no idea. And it's just amazing how relationships build, out of really the absurdity. But we've become good friends, and she takes good care of that tree.
We do. I know you've often talked about putting a plaque on the tree, and I think that would be a wonderful, tribute
I
to
think
Jordan.
we need to at some point in time.
Yeah.
But as Mary said, it's not safe. All of the distractions that we encounter and we involve ourselves in when we drive. And I'm thrilled with the Strayer report for a couple of reasons, Mary. I've been talking for years that you can be as distracted driving without a cell phone, just thinking about, I've got to be on Stoughton Community Access today, and what am I going to say? I'm not comfortable talking in front of people. I've got a speech to give in front of my colleagues, et cetera, and you're going through all sorts of heavy-duty thoughts in your mind in preparation, and knowing that I didn't have the resources to put the little electrodes on people's brains to determine exactly what goes on in owning simulators and things like that. But it was amazing to see, as you described, the different levels of the hurricanes as they have so analogized it to be. So I have, as Roy said, I've been working for the last 6 years. Literally the night before my son's funeral, I was on WBZ, on Jordan Rich's program, and we talked for about an hour and a half about distracted driving. And I said that day, I'm going to devote my time and efforts to seeing if we can get some legislation passed. It's been a very, very rough time. And we thought we had it last year, didn't we, Mary?
Yeah, and
hands-free.
actually, the Transportation Committee just met yesterday and heard a number of hands-free cell phone bills yesterday, and I attended the hearing. So there seems to be
thank
good
you.
support among the committee members.
Well, last year they unanimously gave it the thumbs up. Unfortunately, it was killed along the road as part of something else. There was something else attached to the bill, but maybe we can get it separated out this year. But we did get the no texting bill passed in Massachusetts, and I'm pleased to say we also got a no texting bill passed in Florida, which is going to affect, I believe, in September. Unfortunately, in Florida, it is a secondary offense, meaning somebody has to be stopped for something else before you can write a ticket. So you have to be stopped for speeding, then you can be cited for texting. But if you're driving by a police officer, you can literally hold the phone up and say, hey, I'm texting. And unless you're doing something else wrong, they can't write you any tickets.
That's ridiculous.
Well, you know Florida, they don't wear helmets with their motorcycles like Rhode Island.
That's ridiculous.
But people do it and they feel that they're safe. And my job is not to legislate behavior. My job, I see myself as an educator. I talk to groups all the time. Mary and I were together about 5 weeks ago at the first annual Teen Distracted Driving Summit in Massachusetts at the State House, and three brothers, triplets actually, the Sallet brothers, they had gone to the NOYS, the Noise Convention last year, the National Teen Distracted Driving Summit, and they pledged to put on their own summit. Roy, are we okay? I see you shaking your head.
No, I'm just shaking my head because I'm going to tell the producer that we are not going to do the announcements. As a matter of fact, he just walked in with a note. We think alike. We're going to pass on. We normally have announcements at the end of the show, but we're going to pass on it because I want to continue the next 5 minutes and hear what else you have to say, Jerry.
I appreciate it,
It's
Roy.
more important than Maxie's.
So Jerry, tell the story.
I'm sure Steve Robbins will forgive us. Yes, go ahead.
He will.
Mary, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, tell the story of what happened to Jordan, which was certainly a cell phone distraction.
It absolutely
issue.
was. It was May 13th, 2007, about 4:30 in the afternoon. I was on the phone with Jordan, and we were talking about absolutely nothing important. I was teasing him about the fact that he had gone out to get the paper, and that he had the paper, and he went to the house, and then he left the paper in the car and drove off with it, and he went to the town of Norton to deliver photographs from the prom the night before. Talk about irony. Roy was actually supposed to chauffeur my son and his girlfriend to the prom that night, but he had to send somebody else. Unfortunately, that Roy would have had an opportunity to have met Jordan, but the phone went dead, and both my wife and I tried to ring him back 4, 5, 6, 7 times, and something just seemed wrong, but there was no way to reach him. And about 35 minutes later, my doorbell rang continuously, and there was pounding on the door. My wife got to the door first. I came bounding down the stairs when I saw a police officer there, and he said to me, "Are you the owner of?" I said, "Yes, a black Hyundai. Is my son okay?" He said, "I just can tell you, sir, there's been a terrible accident, and you have to get to the hospital as soon as you can." And the Foxborough Police Department were kind enough to call in and allow the police officer, Officer David Foscaldo, who just had a little baby boy. Congratulations, Dave. And he took me to the hospital, where we went into the emergency room. I knew there was a real problem when we just didn't even stop at the front desk. And when I got back there was a nurse. I said, "Is my son okay?" She said, "Just a minute, the doctor will be out." I said, "Look, just tell me, is my son okay?" And she said, "The doctor will be right with you." The doctor came. She said, "Can we go somewhere and talk?" And I said, "No, just tell me, is my son alive?" And she said, "No, he died." And then I let out this scream, this primal scream is the only way I can describe it. And I've had it a number of times since. Just 3 or 4 weeks ago, I just let out these wails, and people ask me, "Jerry, how do you talk about it and keep the emotions separate?" And I've been on television and interviews so many times that I'm just really able to compartmentalize, and it will probably hit me later this afternoon. But I feel Jordan and I are doing some important work.
You are.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
It turns out that we believe he dropped his cell phone. He took off his seatbelt. He never unbuckled his. He always wore his seatbelt. He was so good about it. He was doing 30 miles an hour, and he ran into, as I described it, this beautiful, massive oak tree. It is oak, isn't it, Mary?
Yeah, it is an oak tree. Yeah.
And there was like practically no damage to the tree. Still can't figure out how it happened, but it looks like as he was bent over when he hit the tree, I think the steering column got him. We never really pressed to find out exactly what happened. It was enough that he was dead.
Well, Jerry, we really, I've been following you in your efforts to solve the problem of distracted driving, and it must frustrate you like crazy when you're on the highway and you see people doing it, and you say, "Why do you do that? Don't you know the reason? What can happen?"
Well, Roy, you're right. I think what's even more frustrating is when I do my public speaking, I always say, "Look, we're." The groups I mostly speak to are teenagers from 16 to early 20s,
Right.
and I'll always ask, "Give me a show of hands. Tell me." No one's writing down any names.
Yeah.
Who's still texting and driving? Who's still talking on the phone? And the numbers are extraordinary.
Yeah. Well, may you continue your efforts, Jerry.
Thank you, Roy.
And obviously, anything we can do up here to help deliver the message, such as a show like today, you know how to get me, and would love to have you on, maybe even spend an hour. I know it wasn't as long as we would have liked, but...
well, that's because, you got a big mouth.
And I have a sweet lady to my left with another important message. The two of you are fantastic to have on today.
Well, thanks for having me. I do appreciate it. And I'm just about to start a new website, which is up. It's called hangupdrive.com.
Okay, we'll make sure
There's no
that people
and in
know
it.
about it.
Hangupdrive.com.
All right, Jerry, we only have a couple of seconds left. I want to thank you very much for your time, and I'm sorry we weren't a little bit earlier for you, but things happen, and it
Roy, I
just takes
still
a
love you.
while.
Mary, big hugs to you and your family. Have a great 4th, everybody.
Thank you, Jerry.
You as well, Jerry.
Good to talk to
Thank
you.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, pal. Mary, thank you.
Great to be here. No text is worth a life,
No, that's
as
for
Jerry
sure.
ably demonstrates.
Right. All right, guys. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you at the next show. Thanks.
All right, Boychik.